the reason why I've left Towie, and I've never spoken about this, and more so because I just never knew when the right time was, and also I was probably a bit scared to speak out about why I left. And the reason I did is because I genuinely believe they set me up. Obviously, I've been on the show for 5 years, and I've dealt with, you know, a lot of different producers, a lot of different crew, whether that be cameramen or anything like that. And something about the last scene I filmed just doesn't sit right with me, and it hasn't for a really long time. So the last scene I filmed, it wasn't meant to be a big dramatic argument. It was a completely orchestrated storyline that was being put to bed, and that was that. And that was known among the cast and crew. And I was told repeatedly, multiple times, to throw a drink at Roman. I was told on different occasions a swill would be epic, in their words. A double swill would be epic, which led me to believe that they told me that Danny was also going to get involved. Prior to that scene, I asked them multiple times to take all the camera equipment out of my car, which was in a different scene. I was visibly unhappy and upset and in quite a bad mental place. And they refused to. I left my car, which is my property, and come back, and they still hadn't removed any of the cameras from my car. It was really bad, and then obviously got into the scene, and you know, things got heated, which was unexpected. And I genuinely believe that Roman had been wound up as well, and I really don't hold any grudges against him. I really don't. But the grudges that I do hold against is Towie, because I believe that they took no accountability for the fact that they told me to throw a drink at him. And I wholeheartedly hold my hands up. I shouldn't have retaliated with throwing a glass at someone. But he threw a drink back at me in response, and that's why I did that. And this whole scenario was played out because of Towie, and because they told me to do that. They told me repeatedly to throw a drink at him. I was already in a bad headspace, and he responded. Rightly so, you should respond. Someone's just thrown a drink at you. And then I responded as well. Normally there's security around, whether that be for a tame scene, there's security around sometimes to stop members of the public from walking into the scene, like, you know, because often it's in a closed space, or if it is a rowdy scene, they have security there in case it gets out of hand. So 9 times out of 10 there's a security guard present. We had friendly relationships with the security guard, we knew them by name, and at that scene there was not one member of security. So when it did get out of hand, no one was there to stop it except for members of the crew. And also, yeah, so often if we was drinking at a bar, of course, you know, we're drinking from a glass, we're not animals. But if there's a scene going on and, you know, there's a potential that there could be a swill or anything like that, watch back any Towie swill, it's a plastic glass. From when I first started, if it was a fake storyline, it was discouraged. Don't make storylines up. Viewers can tell it's fake and it's not authentic, and the show is based on being authentic. We're real people. We're not characters. You know, we're not in EastEnders. And I genuinely believe that because the authenticity of the show died out, whether that be, you know, new cast coming in that don't necessarily know each other, and that's no one's fault other than the fact that they're trying to keep a show going with new people and stuff like that. The authenticity is gone, and we was sort of, well, I'm not talking for anyone else, but for myself, I was encouraged to do storylines that were completely false. I was on minimum wage at the height of Towie, and that's what people don't realise. So obviously the perception of Towie is that we get paid so much money. I was on one of the higher tier systems, so I was on £400 a day. 400 times 3, which is 3 days a week filming, which is the most amount of filming you can get in a week. And that's if you're heavily involved in storylines, something's going on. Some people only film 1 day a week, that's £400 a week. We only film for 11 weeks out of the year, give or take, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less if you've gone on a holiday. So if you add all that up, you make around £11,000. There's 2 series a year sometimes, if it gets commissioned, you're making £22,000 a year. £22,000 a year to be torn apart by, whether that be cast, if you're arguing with people, and I've definitely torn some people apart as well, or the public that are watching the show. I was way too young, and at the time, if someone at 18 had said to me, no, Chloe, don't go on it, I would have told you to go away and said, I'm going on it. But I think that ITV, or even television in general, should definitely look at the age of people they're bringing onto TV. I look at Love Islanders now and I don't believe they do bring on Love Islanders at 18, and I think that's right. I think that maybe the youngest is 19, 20, and I do believe 19, 20 is a little bit better. I think 18, you're literally a child. It's quite funny because if you watch episode 1 to episode 2, it's a different person. But yeah, I did have a lot done. I watched myself. I've never liked my nose anyway, but I watched myself and thought, I can't watch this week in, week out. So I went and got nose filler, cheek filler and chin filler because I had like quite a predominant bum chin, which is quite a nice feature, I suppose. Makes you look different, but I got rid of all of that. OnlyFans pulled me out of a really, really dark place that I couldn't see myself coming out of. When I first went and done my first content shoot, I was so nervous. I'd never done posts in my underwear, even on Instagram. Ads, I think I'd done maybe one 4 years ago, you know, and I was so against it. Any post I done for a lingerie brand, I'd ask if I could do it in pyjamas instead of the underwear. It just wasn't me, and it wasn't. Also, I think maybe I didn't think that it was the route I wanted to go down. I wanted to, you know, be on Towie for a long time and be this sort of television personality, which I still think I can be. But I have a lot of bills to pay because I've got an expensive car. As I said, I've got a house, I've got to do this. And that money, whether it not be a lot, wasn't coming in anymore. You know, I'm getting a post here and there, still not enough. So I went on OnlyFans and it genuinely changed my life. It's the most, like, you know, it's mine. No one can take it away from me. I withdraw my money when I want, get it into my bank account. And I'm ashamed to say I look down on people that was on OnlyFans, but I think it's because there's a stigma attached to it, and I'm aware of that, and I've noticed that myself. You know, some brands don't want to work with me because I'm doing OnlyFans, and of course that upsets me, but also it's hard to be upset when you're making such good money. But in the future, of course, I'd love to combine both of them, and I'm working on a way to do that. I'm trying to work out a way to show people that OnlyFans isn't necessarily what everyone believes it to be. But yeah, it pulled me out of a really dark hole because I genuinely would wake up and think, what am I going to do? Like, you know, I've got savings sitting there that I'm just chipping away into. Do I go and get a job? And there's no shame in getting a job, but the truth was, the amount of bills I had, any job I was looking at with my qualifications, they wasn't covering my bills. So I went and done OnlyFans, and I'm forever grateful for it, but it's not something that I looked at when I was younger and thought, I want to do that. It's not something I looked at last year and thought I wanted to do that. He was so unimpressed, like, you know, he didn't even like when I went and done the content shoot and took photos in underwear. He was like, oh my God, that's for me. And I was like, of course it is. And I know our relationship and I know what we have is so lovely. OnlyFans is right now what I do for work, and it's very separate, but also Jack's very involved. So I show him everything that I post. If anything, sometimes he helps me. And I think he's proud of me, you know, because why would he not be? You know, aside from the fact if you don't agree with what I'm doing, I'm still a young girl that's managed to, you know, keep myself going, fund my lifestyle that I want on my own terms. So I launched my podcast in 2023 because I was getting so much abuse online based off something that wasn't necessarily true or just half a story, and I felt like I didn't really have an outlet to express what was going on. I mean, other than Instagram, you could post that on your story and it would delete within 24 hours. I wanted something that was out there and was my truth. And funnily enough, I never actually done my side of the story, but I knew that there was going to be so many other people in the industry that felt the same as I did. So I launched my podcast and it was actually going amazing. And then last year I was in a really, really bad headspace, I'll be honest. Like, some days I just didn't want to get out of bed. I really did. And I've never had that. Like, I've been low, I think everyone has, but the depression I was in last year was quite dark. And like, there were some days where I'd just sit on the sofa and cry. Like, it was really, really bad, a really bad time for me. But since doing the OnlyFans, and like, that is the purpose, like planning my shoots and doing that, that's given me a purpose. And, you know, I tried to do my podcast last year, I really did, and I'd done like 2 episodes and they was just rubbish quality. There wasn't what I wanted to present to people, so I didn't carry on. And I'm glad that I knew that what I was presenting wasn't myself and I stopped. And this year I'm just really excited to get going again. You know, I've got a new studio, I've got a new like headspace. I feel so much clearer, so much happier. And I'm really excited to speak to people and find out, you know, their stories as well. So I'm excited.